Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah wa ba'd. We will continue on now. You can see that this is the second part. Some people thought that we would break for lunch, but since we have come so far and we have learned from the Sheikh that one of the ways the shaitan will get us is eating too much food. So we'll continue on and just take short bits of small amounts of food. Inshallah, we will keep the shaitan away from us, so we will not go to sleep. The Islamic revival, al-Ihya al-Islami, it begins within the individual. And we have understood that the essence begins with the intentions. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Your deeds are based on your intentions. Following this, the qalb. There is a part of the individual, your essence. This is the basis of all change. إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. If your heart is good, then everything will be good. Your conscience is good. Your emotional intelligence, the door to your soul. If that is clean, then everything is clean. If that is corrupted, then everything is corrupted. Following this, the next manifestation of the Islamic revival within us, it shows in character. So it's not enough just to have your intentions inside of yourself, but this should now display itself in your character. And when the ulama spoke about iman, they say al-qawlu bil-lisan wa-tasdiq bil-qalb wal-amal bil-jawarih. They will say it is saying it with your tongue, and you confirm it with your heart, and you practice with your limbs. So character now is a crucial point. And in many of the curriculums in the Islamic madaris, the Islamic schools, you'll see that they focus on ibadat. They focus on worship. And so they teach the students how to make wudu, how to pray, how to fast. And these are the usul, these are the bases of Islam. Today, we have a great need for not only ibadat, but mu'amalat, character, akhlaq. Because it's not just our actions anymore. And our children have reached the stage where you tell them to make salat, and some of the children will say, why do you make salat? And why is a word that most people do not understand. It's in some people do not have why in their vocabulary. Why do you make salat? But we should know why. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Inna salata tanha anil fahsha wal munkar. Prayer will prohibit from evil and corruption. There's many reasons why we are making our salat. And we should realize that the outcome of the prayer should be a change in the character. When the Hajj comes back, when he finishes making pilgrimage, his character should be changed. If he makes pilgrimage to Mecca and goes to his shop and he raises the price on the people, then what is the value of his Hajj? He comes back and he lies and he curses people. Then what is the value of his pilgrimage? So character is a very important issue that we need to study in details. The Prophet ﷺ, to the extent where in authentic hadith he has said, there's a number of reports of this. I want to bring you the report, the hadith from Al-Muwatta, the Muwatta of Imam Malik. And this one, the Prophet ﷺ said, Bu'ithtu li'utammima husnul akhlaq. We have heard the other hadith, Innama bu'ithtu li'utammima makaram al-akhlaq. But this is in the Muwatta. In the Muwatta, it is a straightforward riwayah. And it says, verily I have been sent to complete the best in character. This is the essence of Islam. And this is the reason why, for the most part, Islam spread around the world. There's no large conquering armies that are really conquering people and forcing them to be Muslims. There's a confrontation that happened with the Roman Empire. There's a confrontation that happened with Sassanid Persian Empire. But this did not spread Islam. It is really the character of the believers and people accepting this And you really see this in places like Indonesia, where no conquering armies went, and yet it is the largest population of the Muslims in the world. So character really is important. And this really is an area that we need to reflect on. A person should be able to be identified as a Muslim, even if you can't necessarily see it in their clothing immediately. You should know by their character they're a Muslim. Because more than just our clothing now. Yes, we should distinguish ourselves. That is important. But it is really, the character is the essence. بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ حُسْنَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. That is the essence of the reason why the Prophet, peace be upon him, was actually sent. And so we want to look into this. Another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, it said that Su'ila Rasulullah ﷺ, he was asked about what will be the main reason why people will enter paradise. Okay? What is the main reason? And he said, Taqwa Allah wa husnul khuluq. The main reason why they will enter paradise is taqwa Allah, consciousness of Allah, and good character. That's the main reason why. And what is the main reason why they will enter hellfire? He said, al-fam wal-farj. The mouth and the private parts. And Sadaqa Rasulullah, we see it come to pass today. The danger of the mouth. The danger now of the private parts with all of the erotica and these fitna that is coming to us in the society today. We need to emphasize character. This is a crucial part of the leadership. And we need to work on this. This is not just something theoretical. We need to work on it. And people need to even have competition, a healthy peer pressure or competition between each other, you know, for character. Many times we want to perfect our salat. We want to fast in the proper way. We're trained by Islamic movements that we need to display our Islam through the clothing that we wear, or through the slogans that we say, or the type of salat that we make. But what is important today really is the character now. This is really going to make us or break us. So we need to look at this and some of the aspects coming from it. I want to bring you a few aspects from character. This study that we did in the 40 hadith here as a basis for workshops, it cannot be completed in 2 sessions or a few sessions. And inshallah, we'll in the future be able to go over more of this. But there are certain key elements or key discussions that I want to bring. Number 1 is the quality of haya. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-haya min al-iman wal-iman fil jannah wal-badha'u min al-jafa wal-jafa fin nar. That decency is part of belief, and belief leads to paradise, and vulgarity comes from crudeness, and crudeness leads to hellfire. So this haya, this modesty, this is a very important part of Islam. Now, coming from the Western societies, I know I can say American society, because in American society, they are taught that, the tough guy, the one who kicks sand in everybody's face and whatnot. This is the one they sort of look up to. And the younger generation today, they are taught that the one who's like the gangster. Most of the heroes now in the movies are bank robbers and gangsters, criminals. These are becoming the new folk heroes in the younger generation. And they will name themselves after these folk heroes. But really for Muslims, modesty is a very important thing. And it's not modesty or shyness in the sense of weakness, but it is hudud. It is knowing the limits. In other words, you give a person their space. You know the space of other individuals. And so by knowing the space, then you will know how to deal. Male knows how to deal with female. Male deals with male. You know how to give the space naturally for a person. And the more modesty you have, it can actually work in your favor. And this is where, as I said, the Prophet ﷺ said there were 3 people in Quraysh. They were the best of people. When they spoke to you, they will tell you the truth. And if you speak to them, they will not accuse you of lying. You see their quality. When they talk to you, they tell you the truth. And if you talk to them, they do not suspect you. They do not have su'ad dhan. Okay? And they were kathir al-haya. They have a lot of modesty. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Uthman ibn Affan, and Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, radiallahu anhu. These 3 especially stand out. And you need to study the life of Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah. He's extremely important Sahabi. Extremely important, radiallahu anhu. Because then you will see these qualities that we want. And that is the quality of, being modest, humble, and strong at the same time. Usually you don't get the 2. The modest, shy person tends to be, in these days, a weaker person. And the one who's strong tends to be arrogant. Okay, but what we want is the balance. It's the modesty that when people are around you, they feel comfortable in your presence. They don't feel uncomfortable. And this is one of the problems of some of the Islamic movements, because the way they teach, they want you to feel afraid of them. They'll test you and they'll attack you. You don't feel comfortable. But you should feel comfortable. Somebody who's doing wrong, that person should feel uncomfortable. The one who is a wrongdoer. But the person who is trying to submit to Allah Azza wa Jal, that person should feel comfortable. This issue of haya is to such an extent, and you know this more than anybody coming out of Europe, is that it has become a very serious issue. The hijab issue is a very serious issue. And it's a strange thing. And when it was brought to people, they don't know how to answer this. And I was in an anti-racist group in Canada when the Liberal government in the 90s was controlling. And we had anti-racist program. And people are allowed to express themselves in society. So now if we want to cover ourselves up and be modest, what is wrong with that? When other people take it off and display themselves and they're accepted. You see? But this is not good business for those shayateen who are controlling the business and who are still using women in order to sell their products. You want to buy a new Toyota and they have a picture of the woman. So why do you have the woman with the new car? Because you're exploiting her sexuality to sell your products. So if we now have haya, there's no business. For a lot of people, they're out of business. One of the biggest businesses in the West today is pornography. Pornography is a silent killer of the people's hearts. Pornography now, it is reaching unbelievable proportions. They are putting this thing almost third in terms of budget, how much it's bringing in. And unfortunately, it's targeting young people between the ages of like 12 years old and say 20 years old. They are some of the biggest users of pornography in the world. And so this is poisoning the generation. And so our Muslims, especially the youth, need to understand the importance of haya, of modesty. And the smoothness, and the delicate nature, of the Muslim lifestyle. This is an important thing that we need to, teach our youth. And this modesty is becoming a very serious issue, and it will continue to be one of the points now that is going to distinguish. And we have to now make it clear in society, that we stand for families, we stand for decency and modesty, and there's nothing wrong with that. In the same way other people want to do other things, then we want to do this. Okay, so this is a key issue that our young people need to develop especially, and the best example is through not words, actions through our life. Modesty begins within the individual. It's not just the cloth, because a person can wear a lot of clothing and be immodest, but they have a lot of clothes on. Okay, so it's a body language, right, that we need to develop within the individuals. And any comments or questions on this right now? If anybody has anything directly concerning this issue of haya and how it shows up, this is one of our battlegrounds, and it is striking more and more countries, and we will have to take a stand. And there are decent people in society who they can see, the modesty. And what I was suggesting to the brothers and sisters when we were in Holland is that one of the things that we had done in Southern Africa is that in terms of Muslim clothes, because that's one of the manifestations, that we can also develop a type of clothing in each country based on the material of the country itself. Like for instance, in certain parts of South Africa, there's a certain type of cloth that they had. And Ndebele people and Lesotho, there's a certain type of cloth that they use. So instead of using the hijab that we imported from the Middle East, so everything's coming from China now, right? But it's supposed to be from Saudi Arabia or from the Middle East or Pakistan. Then we use the materials, the local materials, and we do the hijab, setzel awra. Awra is covered properly, but it is covered with a local manifestation of material. When the people saw this, they said, okay, this is our people, but they're not exactly the same as us. What is this? And they were interested to know. You are a local person, but you are expressing your modesty. Why do you do that? And then we give da'wah. You see? So that modesty needs to come out in a natural way within the environments that we are actually living in. Okay? The next issue that we're looking at is the control of the tongue. And this issue of the tongue is a really, really serious thing. It has caused massive destruction within our community. And the Prophet ﷺ in authentic hadith has told us, Al-Muslim man salim al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadi wal muhajir man hajra ma naha Allahu an. That the Muslim is the one from whose tongue and hands the other Muslims are safe. This is the true Muslim. And the true muhajir or immigrant is the one who abstains from what Allah has forbidden. Okay? So the issue of the tongue is really crucial. And the tongue and what comes out of it can manifest itself in many different ways. The worst possible manifestation of the tongue is to tell lies on the Prophet ﷺ, on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet. That's the worst thing we can do. And the Prophet even said, "Man kadhiba alayya muta'ammidan falyatabawwa'hu maq'adahu min an-nar." Whoever lies on me and he knows what he's doing will have a place in the fire. It'll be waiting for him. Okay, so the tongue, it's very important that we learn to control our tongue. If we don't know an answer, then it is better to say, I don't know. Imam Malik, rahimahullah, was asked one time about 40 questions or so, and about 35 times he said, La adri. I don't know. This is Imam Malik. I'm sure he could make up an answer. One of us, we say, well, I think, my opinion is, and we make up something, right? That's not, if you don't know, say, I don't know. It's better than saying something which can harm you in the next life. Also, the manifestations of the tongue. Backbiting, scandalizing, talking against people. And this is a very important issue. It is not necessarily a fadila, it is not a good quality that you attack other leaders or you attack people. This is not a good quality. You expose the weaknesses of other people. This is not a good quality. In some movements, it's considered to be a good quality. He attacks that person, puts down, that leader. This is not a good quality. We need to control our tongues. And as the Prophet ﷺ said, the other Muslims are safe from our tongue. That's the real Muslim. They're safe. They're safe from our hands. So we're not going to do wrong to them, and we're not going to scandalize them. So this issue of the tongue becomes a very important one in terms of our communities. Backbiting. I remember I was doing counseling, and a Pakistani person came to me and said, this is my problem, don't tell the Pakistanis. Somali person come, he said, don't tell the Somalis. I'm saying, what is this, man? Because their people talk, they chat. And when the problem begins in the northern part of the city, and they say that he has said something against another person, by the time it reaches the southern part, he killed him. Like it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. This is how scandal goes, and backbiting. So, especially in leadership positions, we have to guard the things that we say. We have to think about the things that we actually say. And the Prophet ﷺ is described, he was a person who did not talk that much. You have some people who you sit with and they listen to you all the time. They don't talk that much. In Canada and parts of the world, that's considered a bad quality. You have to talk. If you talk all the time, they say, yeah, that person's like empowered and liberated. Right? But if you see the native people in Canada and other places, they don't talk that much. Okay? And this is the quality of the Prophet ﷺ, not talking a lot, and when he's speaking and saying things that are important. He guards what he's saying. And in a leadership position, we specifically have to guard the things that we say, because we can impact on large amounts of people. If we say something wrong about somebody, that scandal can be taken as a witness against somebody and cause a major confusion in the community. So we have to guard the things that come out of our tongues. Okay, so this is another extremely important manifestation of our character. The third point that we want to talk about briefly in this session, it is the danger of hypocrisy. Now when I say hypocrisy here, it is not necessarily just nifaq in the sense of a munafiq. It even goes further than that. And this is based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, تجد من شرار الناس يوم القيامة عند الله ذا الوجهين الذي يأتي هؤلاء بوجه ويأتي هؤلاء بوجه. You find amongst the most despicable people in the sight of Allah on the day of judgment is the person with two faces. He comes to one person with one face and another person with another face. See? ذو وجهين. This is a despicable person. And that is something, it is a great struggle in our community today. You'll see it manifested in the parents, and then it will come out in the younger generation as well. For instance, the person goes to the job, and it's okay, sometimes you have to do this, but he writes his card and he says, he doesn't say his name is Muhammad, he says Mo. Right? He doesn't say Bilal, he says Billy. Right? Ali becomes Al. Asia becomes Asia. So they change their names in order to be accepted by people. Now sometimes maybe you have to slightly do that. But the problem is when the character changes as well. And this is a problem we were facing, and we still face, where people act one way around Muslims and then another way around non-Muslims. This is ذو وجهين الذي يأتي هؤلاء بوجه وهؤلاء بوجه. Two faces. Okay? And this is a serious problem with the younger generation because of the problems that they face in the society. And it reached the point where I don't want to use the word schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is actual mental condition. But if you use schizophrenia in a broad sense, they become dual personalities. So when you see Bilal at home, he's a very humble person, mashallah, is little Bilal, right? Then he goes outside, puts his baseball cap backwards, and he starts walking around, you know, and he gets this attitude, right? Maybe he has to survive. But the problem is, when Bilal, suddenly you turn around one day and Bilal is Billy. He's standing in front of you, man. You thought he was Bilal, but now Billy's standing there, right? He couldn't change back. And it's Billy there. And you're in shock as to what your son has become. You see? And this dual personality is a serious thing. And we need to try to overcome this so that we can maintain our Islamic personality no matter where we are. Yes, you will change slightly, obviously. You're not going to use a lot of Islamic words and things when you're around people of other faith. But there's certain character qualities that we need to try to maintain. One of the best things, the premier of the province of the Cape, the Western Cape, the previous governor of the province, Ibrahim Rasool, who was a Malay Muslim. One of the things he did, he became the governor of the Western Cape of South Africa. And when he came into the governor's mansion, this is a mansion set up by the Dutch in the 17th century when the Dutch came. Okay? Van Riebeeck. And then when they came in, way back. Okay? And they set up this, and they have wine in that basement that's dating back hundreds of years old. First thing he said when he came in, I want all the wine out of the residence. No wine. And nobody will drink inside of this residence. That's serious. Nobody ever did that before. But they accepted him. He said, this is my way of life. You have elected me, and I don't want wine drinking inside of the governor's. They accepted him. Okay? He did his job. He was efficient in his job. And so they accepted his morality. He stood up for himself. He didn't have two faces. So when he's around Muslims, he's one, and around other people, another. And this is an issue we need to discuss because it takes a type of wisdom too. Because you're going to get in situations where you're not sure what to do. As we were saying, the Christmas party and the Halloween party. We just came out of a celebration that they call Halloween. Everybody knows Halloween? And Halloween, that it was at one point All Hallows Evening on October 31st, and the celebration of the Lord Samhain, who is the Lord of the dead. In European society, the Lord of the dead, the Druids would celebrate for this Samhain. And the next day they would have Thanksgiving Day. Okay, so the 31st evening is a pagan ceremony for Samhain. And they believed that the souls of people who died the year before would actually come to the surface during that night. So they put on a mask so you could not see them. Because maybe you did something wrong to this person, he's coming for you that night. So you dress up. That's where the disguises on Halloween come from. After a while, when it was banned by the church, they changed the name. And so they said All Saints' Day would be on the 1st of November, and they called All Hallows Day, and then they said All Hallows Evening. And so the Americans call Halloween. Okay, Halloween. And so they have these disguises, and they will come to your house, and in order to pay off the young people who came in disguises, they would give them candies and sweets. Okay? Now they say trick or treat. You have trick or treat in Holland? No. This is an American thing, maybe. They're doing it now. Now, the problem is, our Muslims are involved in this. You had one group in Toronto, they had a thing called Halalween. You see Halloween? They say Halalween. But how can you make something haram halal? You can't have Halloween. This is an evening for the shaitan. It's for evil forces. And they dress up like devils and, vampires and witches and things. Wicca. It is the celebration of the people of the witches and the satanic church. This is their Eid. So you can't have Halloween. It's like taking a pig and saying, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, this is halal meat. The pig is Najas Ayn. It's the pig himself that's haram. You can't make him halal. You see, so this is where this two-faced thing, we got a problem with this, man. And if we bend over too much, then we will become watered down like soup, and we will be lost in the soup of secular society. We're lost in the soup. So there has to be a way to live in the society with your Islam, and you're part of society. You don't act like a foreign person. You're part of society, but you distinguish yourself. You see that? You're part of society, but the people can recognize that these people are the decent people. They don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't commit adultery. They're part of our society, but this is what they do. We need to get this type of feeling and understanding out of the people of society itself. And that will require some hikmah, wisdom, and balance in how we actually carry it out. Okay? Floor is open for any questions. Fadhal.
Well, this might bring us to another question. Who has the authority to line the demarcation line between what is culture and what is religion?
Yeah.
Because I like the idea you presented in the first about modesty and having the mixing the local culture with Islam and bringing something in between.
Yeah.
So not to look like a stranger in society. And now, when you mentioned the Halloween example, well, maybe those people try to act on this concept of bridging the gap between the two cultures, but they made it in a wrong way. So who has the authority to say it's cultural?
Well, this is where knowledge is concerned. Is knowledge. Because the information about Halloween, this is not secret information. You can go right on the internet, put the word Halloween in. I have a book called Holiday Myths. You can put my name in, you can see a lecture on YouTube that I gave on holiday myths. There's a book. I got my information from the encyclopedias, from Google. They'll tell you where Halloween comes from. It is a satanic celebration. Just like St. Valentine's Day. You see, there's certain times we have to take a stand. You have to take a stand. And even some of the Christians like Jehovah's Witnesses and Seventh-day Adventists, they don't involve themselves in this. And they tell straight, we don't do this. They go to the teacher in the school and they say, we're Christians, we're Jehovah's Witnesses, we don't do this. This is not our religion. So why can we not, stand up, for the position? So this is not to say that everything within the society, is wrong. Like for instance, in America, they have what is called Thanksgiving Day. Okay? Now there's nothing wrong with Thanksgiving. And actually this ceremony predated the first settlers in America. It was originally done by the native people in America because turkey is not a European bird. It's an American bird. And corn comes from America. And squash that they eat, all of these are American products. So the native people would have a special celebration. They would thank the Creator because their crops were ripe. And when the pilgrims first came, they learned this from the natives. So to give thanks like we do every time we eat, there's nothing wrong with a family coming together and giving thanks. It's not an Eid or anything, but just to come together to give thanks, there's nothing wrong. It's a holiday. So you bring your family together and you come and you have things. The problem is, if you're going to take it too far, you see, like one brother come to me, he said he wants a Christmas tree. The Christmas trees, right? And he said, no, my tree will be a palm tree. I won't have a fir tree. I have date palm Christmas tree. I said, okay, brother. In the Battle of Hunayn, when the Prophet ﷺ was traveling with his followers to Hunayn, they passed a place called Dhata Anwat. And this is where the mushrikeen would hang their swords on the street in order to get power. And the Prophet ﷺ showed them, they said, Ij'al lana dhata anwat, kama lahum dhata anwat. Make one for us. We want a tree too, like they have. Then the Prophet ﷺ is telling them that you are ignorant people. You are ignorant people and you will follow their ways. And he said in another hadith, you will follow the ways inch by inch and foot by foot. Even if they crawl into a lizard's hole, you crawl in there with them. And they said, is it the Christians and the Jews? And he said, Famen, who else? You're going to follow them. So this is where it requires knowledge of the history, knowledge of Sharia, and some hikmah to really set the limit in it. The unfortunate thing is that some brothers and sisters, and I'm not questioning their intentions, sometimes it's ignorance. They will come to the place and they will do everything. They say, well, this is America. This is the West, so I do everything. But you need to understand the roots of the Western society and what's happening in our societies. There's something that's wrong in the society, and you shouldn't be blindly following the actions of the people who are doing these things, you see? Because if they crawl in a lizard's hole, you don't crawl in there because it's a Western thing. You got to stop. You see? Now.
I just wanted to add to that, something that helped me with the question was that when we learned about how a deed is accepted by Allah, there are two components in that. One is the intention, and one is you can say the method. Like the method is correct.
That's right.
So when you were saying, about the modesty, I should have the right intention, but just they went about it the wrong way. Well, is that deed accepted? No, it wouldn't be accepted in the wrong way. So I think that when we're deciding as leaders what to do in those situations like Halloween, maybe their intention is correct, but they just went about it the wrong way, so
yeah,
it wouldn't be accepted.
I mean, if they had an alternative evening, where you come together and then, you can even serve food for the kids or whatever and keep them away from this trick-or-treat and all these shayateen. That's good. You did something for them. But you don't have to call it halal-ween, man. You don't have to go that far, right?
That's their marketing.
Yeah, that's a marketing pitch, but then they don't realize, because they're not, they don't realize what they're doing, right? And some of the people, they said, no, I'll take my children out. They will dress like a Muslim or something like this. They'll dress like one of the prophets. And they go, but you cannot, when the children go to the house and beg, you're teaching them to be beggars. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Yad al-ulya khayran min yad al-sufla." Upper hand is better than lower hand. You cannot teach our children to be beggars. Secondly, when you go trick-or-treating to the house and they give you candy, you don't know if the candy is halal or not. And sometimes what is happening in America now, the evil satanic societies, some perverted people are actually putting all types of things in your bag. And they even kidnap children during this night. So dangerous night. Even they say to the non-Muslims that they'll announce on the television, if your children goes out, the parent should go with the child. Go with the child. And if you see a dark house, don't go over there. Because evil things are actually happening on that night. So it's a good thing for people to have an alternative. Only thing I'm saying is you got to watch out how far you go. We have to really begin to study issues to understand how we actually go about it. Because this can influence our children in terms of how much they actually take from society. Okay? Oh, yes, sister.
Also, about this festivities, a lot of people, I think, nowadays celebrate Christmas or these days more of a commercial thing. Oh, it's nice time together. They
Right.
don't anymore celebrate the birth of Jesus. Also, it
Yeah.
was not really intent. Just they celebrate family time and they have holidays. So what other day should they do it?
Yeah.
If you have this intention and this reason to celebrate, I think I see no.
Yeah, I mean, especially if with our families, the intention is da'wah. Like you're going there to help influence them to Islam, to show respect to your mother and father, then there's nothing wrong with that, especially when the family is not in all these different false Christian modes, because this is not actually the birth of Christ. And this is established fact, even by Christian theologians. Isa alayhi salam was born in the warm weather, because according to the Christians, in the manger, the shepherds had flocks outside. And in Philistine now, you don't have your flock outside at night. It's cold, man. You cannot do this. Also, they were paying taxes, which means their crops had just ripened, and this is after the warm weather. And you see with Maryam, may Allah be pleased with her, when it is saying that she shaped the jidr al-nakhla, when she gets this rutub, when she gets the ripe dates, we know when the ripe dates come, it's the heat. It's not the winter. You see? So it's established even by the religious scholars. Isa alayhi salam was not born on December 25th. December 25th is the winter solstice. And this is where the pagan sun worshippers, they would celebrate the Saturnalia of the Romans, the Bacchanalia of the Greeks, the feast of the 12 nights. They had special ceremonies for the winter season in order to get the sun god, the blessings of the sun god. It's a pagan celebration. And that's where Santa Claus comes in. And so we can see the paganism and materialism come in now. This is the most materialistic time of the year. That's one of the things, when I became a Muslim, I said, Alhamdulillah. That was one time I was glad, because I didn't have to buy gifts for everybody, right? Some people, they buy the gift and it takes them 6 months to pay back their debts. All the commercialism, alcohol drinking, adultery and fornication, this is not a celebration of Jesus. This is a pagan celebration which is happening. So therefore, Muslims need to have balance. Yes, we can do an alternative thing. If we have a family, visit your family. Visit your parents. Show respect to your mother. But when they cut that pig, or they drink that wine, or you have a nice pudding, and the pudding has got alcohol in it, right? Then you have to tell them, this is not halal. Okay, so you have to have a wisdom that you visit, pay respect to your family, and then leave if they're doing these celebrations or eating pork. See, so we have to have balance, in this kind of an issue. Yes, sister.
You're saying leave before he eats, can he share the meal? He has his halal food with him, for example?
Yeah, I mean, if he brings, if the family can appreciate that. I mean, in my family, my mother-in-law, she appreciated halal food. So she even began to buy halal food herself. And so we would bring all the food, and then she liked it. She eventually, alhamdulillah, became Muslim before she died. But that was the beginning, because we took a stand and we said, we're going to bring halal food. And she saw the meat was actually better than the other meat. So we brought it, and then, we showed respect at certain times. And we explain that this is not our way. It's not Jesus' birthday anyway. And these pagan things, we're, in a different way of life, and we explain it nicely, to them. Show respect, because this is the key thing. They want to know that you still respect them. They think that we're taught to disrespect them, and that's wrong. We're only taught not to follow them. We don't follow them in shirk and follow them in ways that are wrong. But we should still show respect, because your mother is still your mother and your father is still your father. So it's that balance that we need to try to get. Yes, sister?
My second question was, how then can you deal with children, if you have children and they are going to school and there are a lot of villages where they are perhaps the only Muslims, will you exclude them? And a lot of, if you're different, we will be mobbed.
Yeah.
Not always with them all the time, but
yeah, it is a very difficult situation for the child, especially when they're in the lower grades, because they will make the different drawings and the whole environment is like that. But the Muslim parent needs to talk to the teacher. You need to have a good relationship with your teacher. Because if you explain to the teacher, this is, our religion is different, we respect you, but our religion is different, then they will know, that they don't have to go to all of the different ceremonies. Fortunately now in many countries, especially in Europe, the religious part is being taken out of this. It becomes like holiday greetings, like a cultural holiday thing. So at least you don't have to worry about the religious ceremonies. But, if it's explained properly, to the child and to the teacher, then you can try to avoid, some of the different, issues, rituals and things, if it is against Islam. But it's a very difficult situation when you have a child in a school, especially they're alone. That's not easy. But you have to take a stand, especially Halloween and certain times. They cannot dress like shayateen and make a joke out of this. They have to know that it's wrong, man. Right? The shaitan is clear. He is aduwan mubin, open enemy. No compromise.
I recognize this because where I grew up, and when I grew up, I was the only Muslim child in the class. It was a Christian, very strict Christian school.
Yeah.
Where I grew up. So you go with the school, but you celebrate Christmas. You go to school. There is a tree. They read out from the Bible. But alhamdulillah, because as a child you bring this with you to your home, and I learned a lot, in fact, about asking at home to my parents, okay, what's this and it's Christmas, and they always explain, okay, but we are Muslims, and yes, this is from them, and we do it like this, and Jesus is our prophet, and etc. So it learned me a lot, even about Christianity.
Yeah.
And I think the role of the parents is very important. If they play the role good, it is possible to grow up in this without losing your kids.
Yeah.
But you have to
You have to be involved.
Definitely.
What is happening now in Canada is that many of the Muslims, if they cannot go to an Islamic school, they are doing what is called homeschooling. Yeah, this is a movement now, homeschooling movement. And that is where people will gather together. They will teach their children at home. And especially in the lower grades, you can get the basic information that they need to, conquer and understand. And you can teach it within your own environment. Because a lot of the teaching in the lower grades is cultural teaching. It's body language. And some of that is not good for our children to have that body language when they're young. Because some people can make it like yourself, but many people, they don't make it. The majority will not make it because the body language is too much. So what is happening now in Canada is homeschooling. This is spreading now amongst the Muslims. Those who cannot go to madrasa, they will school at home until they reach higher grades.
Isn't it possible that this attitude is going to marginalize the Muslim community in the long run?
It depends upon how it's done, because the homeschooling movement was actually begun by Christians who wanted to protect their children and keep the morality of their children. So if it is done in a way where there's a lot of outings, where they go into society, they intermingle, then it is possible for them not to be marginalized. But if they stay in a cocoon by themselves, then they will not be able to face society. So there's got to be a lot of outings and a lot of interaction with society, that the children have as they go through this homeschooling phase.
Because I think that's the danger of what like if you see Muslims in Europe, they live in certain areas where most of the people are from another country.
That's right.
They go to the Islamic school where only Arabs or Turkish. So in fact, when this kid goes to university when he's 18, he will be shocked because he never involved in it.
That's right. And what was happening in Cape Town is that the Muslims who were sheltered and were not trained to interact, when they went to university, they became worse than the non-Muslims. They lost control of themselves because they didn't know how to, be Muslim in a non-Muslim environment. They had dhu wajhain. See, they had two faces. So they have to learn how to be Muslim outside. It's time for salat. We will establish a salat outside. They have to learn how to do that. How to fast and be around other people who are not fasting. They have to learn how to do that. Then you can survive. If you fast only with people who are fasting, you're going to have a problem. Because you're afraid to go in society. How are you going to fast and work on your job? How are you going to fast and go to university? So these are very important issues that we need to try to come to grips with. We're going to take a break now for a few moments and inshallah come back. It's now about 1 o'clock. So we will take a break until about 1:10. 1:10 or so, wabillahi tawfiq.